Hey y'all, welcome back to Dots and Beyond. My name is Beth and it is time to do my Spotify Wrapped for 2022. This is one of my favorite spreads to do every year. I'm a Spotify whore. I have been since the beginning. It is my music app of choice. Went all in the minute I could get it here in the US and never looked back. Before we do that, we are going to take a peek at what I've done in the past because I did do something radically different this year. I kind of cheated. So my Spotify Wrapped, if you haven't met Buffy yet, this is Buffy. She is from my Fierce Fictional Female series from last year, and this is my Buffy journal. But we are going to open up to my Spotify Wrapped from last year, and this is kind of what I did. Spotify sort of did a movie kind of theme, and so here was my movie thing, my top songs 2021. I like my gold, so I used a lot of gold. My number one artist was Stealth. He's still on my list, but he got knocked off the number one spot. I just kind of had a lot of everything here. My number one podcast was Desert Island Discs, and I just sketched a lot out. And that's what I did for 2021. I have listened to about the same number of minutes for this year, which are both low for me. I talk about it a lot, but we have a lot of new subscribers, so thank you to those of you who have joined just in the last couple of weeks. My minutes, and we'll look at my 2020 journal here in just a minute with my Spotify, my minute count is double this. So that just kind of tells you when I was a venue event manager working the job of 6 people, I didn't have time to listen to as much music as I normally do, or as many podcasts as I normally do. Let's go ahead and look at this next one. This is the back half of 2020 journal. I know, I'll look at this journal. This is one of my first journals. It's cheap. It was $7 off of Amazon. I actually listed it in yesterday's video talking about economical journals because it worked for me. I mean, y'all, you don't have to spend a whole lot of money on your journal, especially if you're just starting out and you don't know if bullet journaling is going to work for you. This was my Spotify Wrapped for 2020. This is kind of how I set it up. They labeled me a tastemaker, but like, here's my minutes listened for 2020. I also dubbed 2020 the year of the cello. Again, with the pandemic, getting furloughed during part of the year, being stuck at home, cello must have been like my mellow music or my mental health music, because I listened to an enormous amount of cello music. So I wrote Pandemic Chill Vibes in 2020, and my 3 of my top 5 artists, I believe. So yeah, Hauser, Janice Wong, and 2 cellos. Yeah, were cellists, which I think is hysterical because I'm predominantly a rock chick. But you know, the pandemic I think pushed us all into weird places. I just wanted y'all to see that I normally sketch out my Spotify Wrap. This year, as you saw in the beginning, the Wrapped has got all of these vibrant colors, pinks, purples, greens, yellows, and I just decided I was gonna cheat and do some printables, literally just screenshot my Spotify Wrapped, and we're gonna collage them into my journal. So I will be right back. Okay, y'all, I am back and ready to set up the Spotify Wrapped in my back half journal for 2022. This is Tamasha. This will be one of the last setups that we are doing in here. I will do my Spotify Wrapped, and then I will do a year-end review as well. As you can see, these are sort of the colors that we are working with the Spotify Wrapped. This year, I've pulled out some gel pens in corresponding colors. I have cut up some papers in corresponding colors. One of those does come from a little Archer and Olive Notepad. This came in the sub box for the summer of 22. And then the other one, I used some of this paper. Oops, excuse me with the noise. I used some of this paper in my December setup, this pink paper for my pretty pink Christmas. And I've just decided I've had this for like 2 years and I need to use some of it as well. So I've got some of it cut up here as well. And I have no idea how this is gonna go. Haven't planned out anything at all. I do know that I have more pages than I normally do at the back. I mean, I don't have a ton of them, but I do have probably 10 pages back here left. And so I am probably, unless I can fit it all on to one page, I'm probably gonna do a 2-page spread for my Spotify Wrapped, and that might just make me really, really happy. We will see. So I am going to turn it over to voiceover Beth, and we are just going to get to collaging and see how this turns out. Hey y'all, editing Beth here, and I realized that I didn't really go into much of a descriptor on these stickers beyond telling you that I screenshot them on my phone. So as the Spotify Wrapped was going through, I really just made the screenshot. I then airdropped them to my Mac and then imported them into Canva. Once they were in Canva, I resized some of them. I actually combined some of them, cropped others to sort of make a lot of different shapes. The size was really determined on making sure all of the words stayed legible so that I could actually read the screens. And then I threw in some records and a Spotify logo just for good measure. But between filming the intro and actually starting to do this collaging, I remembered that I had these stickers that came in a board game, an MTV board game, that have all of these cassettes on them and a lot of the same colors that we're already using in our setup. I have had them in my sticker stash for so long without knowing where I was going to use these, and now we have the prime opportunity. As mentioned, I'm going into this with absolutely no plan beyond the fact that I have printed out these stickers and cut some colorful paper. You are going to see me put things on the page, move them around, try to figure out where they are going to fit best, and that is all part of the collaging process. Total time once I started collaging was about an hour. I have this sped up to about 8 times normal speed. Probably 20 minutes of that footage was me stuck in analysis paralysis or trying to peel the back off of a sticker. There really is no right or wrong way to do a collage setup, and along the way in this one I did take the time to jot down some memories, write some notes, add just some little personal touches to each one of these Spotify screens. I particularly struggle with the minutes of listening sticker that says 52,207. It takes me quite a while to figure out where I'm going to put that. This space graphic that says I explored 110 genres did not look spacey enough for me, so I got out the gel pens and added some space elements to that as well. This year Linkin Park rose to the top of my listening list. They were my #1 artist, which is funny since I had already designed my bullet journal for 2023, which I named Chester after Chester Bennington, long before the Spotify Wrapped came out, so I wasn't even aware of it at the time. But since I'm feeling a little sentimental about it, I wrote a little heart and a "We miss you, Chester" message. If you are a Spotify user, I would love to know your top 5 artists or your top 5 songs. Go ahead and leave those for me in the comments below, and maybe I'll find some new things to listen to. Some items, like my song of the year, I move all over the page trying to figure out where to place them before deciding they really are just going to have to go on another page. And while I dubbed 2020 the year of the cello and 2021 the year of stealth, 2022 for me is the year of the sentimental rock anthem. I feel this scrapbook style gives me creative license or freedom to make a lot of little notes, draw some arrows, react to the specific Spotify statistics, little tidbits that I just didn't do in my 2 previous iterations of a Spotify Wrapped. Oh, and look, I finally found a place for that minutes sticker. Here I chose to write a little note about the top artist, Linkin Park. Linkin Park was a bit of a surprise, though not an unwelcome one. They have written the anthems of my difficult bipolar life. And as the page began to fill up, I am super glad that I found these cassette tape stickers or remembered that I had them, because they fit into some of the spaces that other things did not fit. And since my top podcast was the Magnus Archives, I decided to write down here "The Eye is Ever Watching." I also put a little eye doodle. I do cover it up with a little green flower and then doodle my eye on the inside of the flower here in just a minute. Magnus Archives is my son Kenny's favorite podcast, and it was his bullet journal theme for October 2022. There is a video of that setup that I did for him. I suggest you go back and watch it. But I was doing research for the Magnus Archives for Kenny's setup and ended up binging the entire show. As predicted, I am moving on to a second spread, and on this page I am mainly going to put my songs, my top 5 songs for the year, the hits that I missed, as well as my music personality. Here at the top I'm writing in some lyrics from my #1 song, which was "The Drug in Me is Reimagined" by Falling in Reverse. This is not a happy song. It's also not a new song, much like the other on my top 5 list. So we have "The Drug in Me is Reimagined," "Suicide Blonde" by NXS, "My Life" by Imagine Dragons, "Battle Symphony" from Linkin Park, and "Creep" from Radiohead. I mentioned to friends recently that I felt like my music taste had been decidedly generic this year, so I was very thrilled when Spotify came along and decided that I was still very much an adventurer when it came to music. Always a fan of a good personality test. I love that Spotify gave us our own personality profile, or our music profile, this year, much like a Myers-Briggs assessment. Mine being exploration, newness, variety, uniqueness. I do go down some Spotify rabbit holes from artist to artist. Spotify also gives us a list of missed hits, which are things that users similar to yourself may have been listening to in 2022. I knew I wanted to include some of those songs in a playlist of sorts. This is one of those things I didn't necessarily think through, and it's not my favorite part of the setup. Since I already utilized Canva for this setup and I was already in there, I wish I had printed some of these song titles on the mini records that I was designing so that they all had a little bit more uniform of a look and not necessarily my handwriting, but this works out in the end. It certainly doesn't bother me enough to make me want to go back and change it. I also was not counting to see if I had the same number of songs on pink, yellow, or green cards. Again, just embracing the creative chaos of it all. And since Spotify named me the adventurer, I named this list Shit to Explore in 2023. In lieu of another sticker in this empty spot, I simply signed my spread, Thank You 2022. Y'all, that is it. That is my Spotify Wrapped spread for 2022, which as you can see is radically different than those first two spreads I showed you from 20 and 21. I was definitely deep down in my feels most of the year, hence the year of the sentimental rock anthem. One of those anthems being My Life by Imagine Dragons, which propelled them to the number 3 spot on my top artist list, and that was probably the biggest shocker of the year. And while the Magnus Archives was my top podcast, if you're going to check out one on this list, I highly recommend the Where Is My Mind podcast, which is hosted by Irish rocker Niall Breslin, and it is definitively the one that has the number 1 mental health vibes. Don't jump in the middle, go all the way back to the beginning and binge it from there. One little tidbit of Beth information, with the exception of the title on this Linkin Park cassette tape, the rest of these titles are actually names of my actual playlists. More on my playlists when we get to my 2023 setup, but I do listen to sort of a mellow playlist called Breakfast on the Morning Train when I'm getting ready in the mornings. That's because I need to wake up easy, and it definitely has these easygoing vibes that Spotify pinned down. By the time I get in the car though, we've definitely moved on to the rock hits. And as for this evening of suspense, mystical and creative, I don't know what it means, but I like it. Let's flip back over to this second spread really quick and take another peek. Here I focused on my listening style as well as my top 5 songs and missed hits. Now this top 5 is a moody mix. It's pretty depressing with the exception of one. That one being Suicide Blonde by NXS, which is one of my power anthems because it's not about suicide at all. It was a song written by Michael Hutchence for Kylie Minogue. The rest of them though, yeah, we'll just say it's been a year. And clearly Spotify wants me to continue my dark, moody rock anthem trend because many of the songs they put on my missed hits fall into this category as well, though not all of them. I can say I don't like the second spread as much as I did the first. I could have worked a little harder to get it all on one page, but I did know that I wanted to include some sort of playlist for my missed hits, and I think that would have needed at least one more page all to itself. I just wish I had done it just a tad bit differently. Let me know if you're going to do any sort of a Spotify Wrapped spread. I would absolutely love to see them. You can tag me here on YouTube or on Instagram at Dots and Beyond. And y'all, that is a wrap on this Spotify Wrap. Thank you for watching. You know what to do next. Give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next one.